In the Battle of Iraq, the United States and our allies have prevailed.
The Iraqi army essentially was dissolved. Either they were killed or they've gone back to their homes.
One of the first decisions the US-led forces made after invading Iraq was to disband the country's military, which used to be one of the largest in the Middle East. 20 years later, the country is still dealing with the repercussions. One former commander of the reconstituted forces believes it was a calculated move.
It was the worst decision. It led to the destruction of Iraq, and we are paying its price until now. I think the decision was deliberate. A lack of forces enabled months of robbery. The Rashid military camp was the biggest in the Middle East, and there was an estimated theft of 8 to 10 million weapons.
Groups such as the one led by Muqtada al-Sadr were formed, in part to resist US-led coalition forces, and demanded their withdrawal. Sectarian fighting between Shias and Sunnis was one of the results. It killed tens of thousands of people. The chaos led to the rise of armed groups such as Al-Qaeda and ISIL, and the newly formed army fled when ISIL fighters took Mosul, Iraq's second city, only to later reunify with Shia militias at the forefront to liberate almost 40% of the country.
One of the biggest problems was the relation between security forces and citizens. Now Iraqi security forces' sole loyalty is for Iraq and the military enterprise, regardless of their sectarian, ethnic or tribal affiliation.
An international coalition comprising more than 80 nations has helped Iraq to rebuild its armed forces and counter threats from armed groups. The international coalition, which came together to fight against ISIL, has taken a much smaller advisory role now. As Iraqi forces say, they are confident that they can defend their own homeland. But questions remain about the powerful militias and sectarian forces. 20 years on, the threats have evolved.
Without any doubt, the biggest challenge in Iraq is drugs. We're trying to eradicate the rising drug trade. Then there's the challenge of electronic and organised crime. Terrorism now comes third or fourth after the development of our security forces and the retreat of the terrorist groups.
The threats have changed and the forces protecting Iraq have been rebuilt. But many people here say they still don't feel completely safe. Osama Bin Javaid, Al Jazeera, Baghdad.